block. No, it's 50 degrees and pouring rain. That's why I got the hood and everything else. But yes, Black Lives Matter. We're here in Tacoma, Washington, home of the Tacoma aroma. That's a whole separate story. We are outside of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, aka ICE, facility and detention center. It's a lovely name for prison. Detention center, where there is a protest to melt ICE, a protest against the Immigration, Customs and Enforcement. And up in the top, in the descriptions, especially if you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube, there is a list of activists that we encourage you to support. There is the documentary Black June that we encourage you to support. Full disclosure, I'm camera ops on Black June, which is what started all of this in the first place. And then, last but not least, support BIPOC first, support them first. If you really want to support us, our Venmo is up there. You can do that also. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and spin the camera around, and we're going to walk closer so you can hear the speakers.
Every year. Yet they still claim to be an agent of public safety. But that does not make any sense. They have not had a Senate-approved leader since 2017.
Truth.
That was Sarah Saldana, who stepped down. And since then, each director of ICE has been just some fucker that Trump chose to put in there.
Truth.
Right now, it is a Vietnamese former refugee. His name is either Tom Pham or Tony Pham. And I was reading a little bit about this individual, and there was one article titled, history as a something along the lines of the history as a refugee increases this person's credibility. Which I think is very dangerous rhetoric. Because how often do we see in our own communities POC who have kind of made it out, right? They're well-to-do, they're affluent, and they have this mindset of, oh, well, I fixed my situation, so what's wrong with you that you're not fixing yours? And that's exactly what this tokenized leader of ICE is screaming to me. It's bullshit. They put, it's like Cartman Beth as the police chief. Oh, well, we have a black woman as our police chief. It's the same type of rhetoric. It's the same type of illusion. It's the same type of gaslighting that we cannot and will not call for. I just wanted to give that brief introduction because I am not an immigrant, but I care very, very, very deeply about immigrant rights and every person's right to be safe and happy and supported and loved. And isolation is one of the strongest tools of oppression and repression. And so I really, really am very heartwarmed that you all have shown up. And I know it's not for me, it's for our immigrant brothers and sisters and siblings. But please make some noise so that they know we're here.
Probably what you can't see, there's a bunch of people that are under the tarps, and there's another tarp that's behind that. You might see the blue. I would estimate there's about 40 people here right now, but there are still people that have been trickling in.
Amazing Malibu is going to lead a grounding exercise for anybody who is interested. Where should we be? Are we okay standing in the rain a little bit? Are we Washingtonians? Okay. Well, how do you feel about that? Or would you rather do it here? Okay, we'll do it from here. So please, make some noise. Do some noise.
Just a quick chance, I want to say hi to Tula, Shell, and Jed. Thank you for watching. And Alice.
small ones for blueberry.
I also didn't get a chance to shout out to Maggie because I wasn't looking at the phone yesterday, but Maggie, thank you for your support. So I just thought I'd belated shout out there, and we'll respect the speaker.
Exhale. Inhale deeper this time. Exhale. If you have 2 free hands, you want to put one on the belly, one on the chest. Inhale, feel the rising. Exhale, feel the falling. Let's take this time to set an intention for our time for the video. What does it mean for you to be here for everybody today? For showing up for our brothers and sisters and siblings instead of them. If you feel like you want to be doing this to help something, then breathe into this intention. And you just bow your head to your hands. Focusing on the breath, focusing on how you're going to carry out this intention. A few moments here. Together, let us inhale. Exhale. It's hard to do it. I can go forward. We don't have much arm space in here, but let's go ahead and move forward. I'm not going to do it so I can watch the video. Protect you. And down. Just hit the head. In the head, let everything just fall. And breathe here.
I'm just going to move so you don't see a bunch of butts.
Massage your legs while you're here. Let's inhale.
Actually don't know if I can get a shot, but there's a bunch of butts.
At the ground. And I would like to sit a nice cup of tea in the bowl. Nice. Exhale, forward fold, relaxing. Beautiful. Let's inhale and bring it all the way up.
You might be able to hear a little
And
better
if
here
you
from
can,
two.
if you have arm space, go ahead and reach your arms up and overhead. Lovely. Try to grow as tall as you can, so root your feet deep in the earth. Imagine you're firmly planted with all of your toes in their roots, so they're grounding, and no one can sway you, no one can shake you, no one can move you. And your arms are the branches that extend upwards within the sky. Get as tall as you can, grow. Maybe you can feel yourself lift up from the legs, nice active legs here, nice active kneecaps. Up, 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 get taller and taller. Breathe, deeper. Exhale, bring the fingers down to your sides. And let's go ahead and take a little twist here. So try to keep your hips square, tighter, and just twist the upper body. If it helps for you to put your hand on your hip, to kind of push your hips forward while you turn. You can try that. Let's do the other side. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So the physical part of this will not, I think that's it for this, but I want to do some spirit work as well. So let's do some affirmations. So you can, if you want to close your eyes, you can. Wherever you want to put your hands. Actually, let's go ahead and give ourselves a big hug. Big hug. And while we're holding ourselves, we're going to affirm the things we want to see in the world. The things we want to see right now. So just shout it out. Just shout it out. For all of us together.
Justice. Affordable housing.
Hashem.
False police.
Hashem. 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 Keep it coming. Hashem.
Oh, it's private prison.
Hashem.
Private prison.
All prisons.
All prisons.
Hashem. 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 Hashem.
And capitalism.
Hashem. Thank you all for speaking these things out into the universe. By the way, Ashe is the confirmation from Western African faith. You can always say that when you want to affirm something, an agreement or whatever. Let's believe in these things. Let's take one final big breath, the deepest breath you've taken all day to solidify those affirmations. So together I'm going to be dramatic with my body back. So inhale, deeper, deeper, exhale. Thank you, peace. And prosperity and blessings. Namaste.
Alright, we're gonna do some music. If anybody would like to start making some signs, you are welcome to do so. And then I'm gonna touch base with our beautiful, knowledgeable, amazing speakers. And we're gonna give you some more church for this Sunday happy. Some more church in a minute. Thank you.
So for those of you who are just tuning in, we are live. We are in Tacoma, Washington. This is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement melt ice protest. Prior to C disease, these protests, as I understood, were happening here near daily, if not daily. And there were some really big protests that were happening here as the mainstream media did some investigative reporting on the conditions inside of this facility and the treatment of people being held in here and the maltreatment of people being, no pun on the maltreatment of the people being held here. People being forced into work details so that they could purchase things that legally, under the protections they are afforded, they weren't supposed to work for, like just real basic care items. People packed in overcrowding conditions, violence in the system, violence being created because of the people packed in the conditions, maltreatment by the guards, and you can simply do and we'll probably break this down on a happy hour. I don't know if we'll get a happy hour in tonight. I would love to get a happy hour. The reality is stuff ran longer yesterday than I thought as far as the protests that was going on, and counter protests to the counter protests. Yesterday was a crazy day. And then the second thing is, by the time I get home, it takes like 6-8 hours to put together one of those studio shows. And I know that people have reached out to me afterwards. It's like, wow, the production value is great. It's really professional as well. And it's like, well, that's what we want to deliver. This is what we want to do. I don't know, maybe we'll do a pillow talk tonight. I haven't done a pillow talk in forever. And if you haven't seen a pillow talk, I don't know, it's really weird. I did one once and I was stunned at how many people watched and how engaged people were. And I don't know why, and I don't know if it's because the pillow talks are like real. They're very real because it's literally just me in bed, leaning on pillows, talking. And there's no fancy light and there's no nothing, and it's wicked popular. And I've even had some people like, hey, are you gonna do a pillow talk? And I know someone like suggested it yesterday, basically saying you haven't done one in a long time. I would estimate there's maybe 40 or 50 people here. It's a little hard to see. There's a fair number of people that are, you might see people kind of coming in and out of the tarps there. There's a fair number of people under the tarps. And then you might see a little bit of like blue behind that, right? There's another tarp and you can't even see inside of that. And then there's a tarp behind that. For those of you who are not familiar with Puget Sound and the Puget Sound area, people that did not, people who either are transplants or people, people that weren't raised here, or people that are more recent transplants, when it rains and it gets 50 degrees like it is today, they're real easy to spot because they're using umbrellas. It's either that or they have really, really nice hair and they just don't want to get it wet. That's the other possibility. And, the rest of us, and like the hardcore, I'm just from Seattle, whatever, they don't have their hoods up. So I have my hood up, so I don't fall into that hardcore category. Oh my goodness, it looks like they have coffee. I always say this is a well-fed movement. There's an individual that provides a lot of food, particularly in the everyday march. And this individual, it's vegan because, you know, trying to be inclusive of everybody that attends there. And I've had some of the vegan chilies made. I generally don't eat that food because I have white privilege. I have the resources and money to go and buy my own meal. And there are other people here that don't have the resources and privilege that I have. But every now and then I'm crazy hungry, and people are like, no, come on, just, you know, like, go get something. It's okay. And I know it's okay. It's not like anyone has an issue. It's just, that's my values. That is me living my commitment to the movement. Anyway, long story short, I've had the vegan chili. Hello. I've had the vegan chili that he's made, and it is the frickin' bomb. And so he made vegan breakfast burritos, and everybody was talking about how good they were. And I ate Taco Bell on the way here, and then I was like regretting life. I'm like, damn, I wanted one of his vegan burritos. Especially when I heard what was inside of them. I was like, damn, I really want a vegan burrito, because it basically had all my favorite vegan ingredients. I am not a vegan or a vegetarian, but I certainly appreciate good vegan and vegetarian food. Hey, the Auto Club's checking us out. And being a federal facility, probably watching the stream, and God only knows what else. You don't have to be that far down the rabbit hole. You really don't at this point. So you're probably wondering, like, where's pole cam? Pole cam is heavily weather resistant. I have not weatherproofed pole cam yet, and I need to this week. So if you're just tuning in, we are in Tacoma, Washington. This is the Melt Ice Immigration Customs Enforcement protest. There are more people trickling in because I can see people kind of walking down and from here. And you know, we're probably in like around 40 or 50, and like I can see another vehicle that's kind of driving in right now. It's funny, all these people love Pillow Talk. Yeah, another way that you can certainly help out is share or start a watch party. You know, as look, if you want to be a chud and you want to be doing like your hateful comments and stuff, start a watch party, because then you can have all your hateful comments in your private little room and you're not going to get blocked by us. I mean, think about it. If you're watching anyway, you're already helping amplify the stream. So we love our trolls. We love you because you help amplify the volume. The rain has let up a little bit from when I started. And I have ideas on how to weatherize pole cam, but we're gonna have to weatherize pole cam. The nice thing is, this is kind of like pole cam junior. So I can do that. Kimber, that's a great question. The biggest thing I just need to do is be able to protect the camera from getting just all water spotted up on the pole. And I have to protect two connections, the sound connection and the power connection. Both of those connections are already what you would call highly water resistant, But as we kind of get into November and December, and where we have these days where it's raining like, you know, an inch of rain in a day, if you're outside 4 or 6 hours, it's going to push the limits on the ability for those connections to stay dry. And the camera lens will certainly get all smeared up with raindrops. And where it's up in the pole, it's, you know, it's not like I could just reach my hand up there and go wipe and solved. So it's going to take a little bit more than that. So I need something where the lens is under reasonable conditions to be kept dry. Hey, the Auto Club's going by again. Hello, Ice. Ice pickup truck driving back and forth. I don't know if they have like an LRAD speaker on the top. Kind of looks like they have some kind of speaker thing on the top. What's going on right now is if you see the camera wiggle, it's because my knees are moving to the beat. And with pole cam, I can actually wiggle to the beat and it doesn't show up. But with this camera, it probably shows up a little bit. So I'm really trying not to wiggle to the beat, but it's like it's hard not to, right? It's awesome. Anyway, I was going to start to say, right now what they're doing is they're making signs. And so if you're just like, wow, people are just standing around and stuff, well, again, that's part of it. The whole idea behind this, or part of this, is to make enough noise so that the detainees that are inside this facility can at least hear they are not forgotten. And what was being talked about earlier about there has not been a congressionally approved and assigned leader of ICE since 2017 is correct. And there has been revolving door leadership. That is also correct. One way that President Trump has usurped congressional power is by putting people in acting positions. There's a battle going on right now with one of his appointees that is kind of so connected, so dirty, and was an appointee that did not get congressional approval, that even the courts have said, you know, this guy can't be the leader, and he is refusing, the individual in question, he has refused to step down. So much for the rule of law, right? Because this goes into the whole balance of power things. Michelle, it is cold. It's about 50 degrees and it's raining off and on. It was raining a lot harder maybe 15 minutes ago. Like when people were doing their intention, their grounding exercise, it actually was raining. It was ick. It's stepped back from that. And right now, additional tarps and shelter areas are being set up.
On the first Canalibra market inspiring. Oh, this, Oh, they really can't hear us unless we are so fucking loud.
police brutality to the police. So, you know, to look, if they come out, and if we're able, look them in the eye and tell them exactly why they're a fucking monster and exactly why life needs to be abolished. Okay, here, I want to do a quick land acknowledgement. We are here on Salish and Puyallup land. And we honor those who cultivated this land long before us, who were forcibly stripped of their land, rights, and culture. And we thank those people for allowing us to stand here today. Okay. We are gonna now. I'm gonna put on one more song because I was going to double check with people. Make sure everyone's comfortable. And I want to reiterate that I love you all so much. I'm looking around in people's eyes and there is such light and joy, and it gives me hope that we can come together and we can use our resources to bypass legislation in the name of
All right. SPN, I did get your message, and I'm trying to get, love the mask. Hi. SPN, I got the message, and I'm trying to get eyes on that person to pass it along. SPN, I got your message, and I'm trying to get eyes on that person to pass it along. Thank you so much. I know they'll be very, very happy. Everyone's like, what's he talking about? Nothing super secret, promise. Oh, this is where my facial blindness works totally against me. Oh, I got eyes. Hey.
Oh, where are you?
Hey.
What's up?
Good news. They're an ally. Totally trust them.
Okay, but is it on?
No, but they're saying
from
you
then,
got
from
you.
then on?
Yeah, you can put them on as a mod. There'll be a mod for you
Awesome.
right now. So
Perfect.
they even told you how to do it right there.
Okay. All right. All right, cool. And I have her info here too.
Oh, you got it.
Yep.
Okay, so just make her a mod right now, and you got eyes on your feed.
Okay, cool.
They just asked me to pass it along. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, here. I'll show you
Gotta
again.
end it.
All you got to do is type
Okay. And then,
type what she wrote there.
okay.
I don't want to put it on blast.
Where though?
Right in the chat.
Okay.
Literally right in the chat. I know. My hands are cold. And
But okay, there are some more messages below. I don't even know how to do it. Like how to chat with her.
here, let me see.
That's how new I am.
Wow, I don't. You don't have it. You
Oh,
don't-
maybe at this little thing?
Maybe. No. Huh. Oh shoot! I just made your chat. You know what? I know it's going to stink. Orient your phone the other way.
Would it switch over when I go back?
Yeah. It should. Yeah. And now, is your chat not switching over still? Damn. Oh.
Okay. Mute microphone, no.
No, switch it the other way. Wow. Why can't you? More messages below.
Oh, delete
Oh
message.
shoot! No,
copy
we don't want to
message.
delete message. Although, oh yeah, you probably did want to. I don't want to knock you off the air. That's why I'm like,
Cool.
why can't you? What if you swipe it? What if you go this way? What if you go up to the top of the chat? Oh no, did we knock you off the air?
No, it's just like coming back on. Well, I don't want to stress this too much.
Okay,
right
yeah,
now,
we'll let
but
it go.
At least I know how to do it, and I know what questions to ask.
I'll screenshot this and
Okay,
send
okay,
it to you.
send it to me.
Yeah,
Okay, thank
yeah.
you.
absolutely invaluable lens through which she has experienced the world. And we are all very fortunate to hear from her today, so please make some noise.
Streamer love, because we all we got, we all we need. I'm actually testing this out on my well, I don't know. I don't know why it won't work. We'll move in a little closer so you can hear the speakers better.
I did not have the honor of knowing Vanessa Guillen myself personally, but I recall seeing her mother on the news and thinking of how much of my mother I saw in Gloria Guillen. How I could see how much they loved and relied on her and their family. How I could see this immense sadness and terror in her mother's heart, and the only thing that held it back was her anger and her fury and her demand for her daughter. And how I really felt that somehow that strength of will, that force would somehow make it so that Vanessa would be found and she would be found okay, even though I knew that was unlikely. And the heartbreak that it was when we learned that she had been killed, and the horrible things that had been done to her. I'm not going to talk about the things that were done to her, but I will talk about the lack of protection that she received. I will talk about the fact that she told her mother, she told her sisters, her friends, her co-workers, the sexual harassment that she was dealing with. She had wanted to join the military since she was 10 years old. And her mother saw her shortly after her training and knew something was wrong and pressed. And she told her she didn't want to be in anymore. She wished she could be done already. That she was surrounded with people that were not good people. Vanessa Guillen wanted to serve a country. People join for all kinds of reasons. But we know that they failed to protect her. We know she asked her mother, please don't do anything. I'll take care of it on my own. She was afraid of retaliation. She said there was multiple people, but this one person in particular, she knew multiple complaints had been made against him, and they had been swept under the rug. So she said, Mom, please, I'll take care of it myself. The military, this government, let her die. They let a culture fester that will take and take, but protects no one. That's what this country does. That's what this government does. That's what it's been doing for a long time. This is the time of year, in October, many of us who celebrate El Dia de los Muertos are thinking about family, ancestors, loved ones who passed away, preparing an ofrenda for them. And so the people, especially the people who have died this year, are really holding them in our hearts, holding folks like Vanessa Guillen, is important to do. Vanessa's birthday, she would have turned 21 less than 2 weeks ago. She was a baby. She was just a baby. I could tell you about how she was the top of her class. I could tell you about how her loved ones talk about what a wonderful daughter she was, a wonderful sister she was, a wonderful friend she was, about how big her smile was, about how she lit up a room. But also none of those things should be necessary to make your life valuable. None of those things have to be true for this country to abstain from murdering you. So, as we near the time of year where we really think of those who passed, I'd like to just take just a short moment, a moment of silence, and then we're going to be real loud soon. But just for a moment, take a moment of silence to think about those that this country, that this government has let die. Think of Vanessa Guillen. Think of all these people that have had to die in ICE custody this year. So just a short moment. Vanessa happens again and again inside this building, across the country, even across this continent. This happens again and again, the same symptoms of capitalism and white supremacy, where folks take and take and take and offer no protection, offer no caretaking, take what they want and discard the rest. There's examples of that when we see Vanessa willing to serve this country and it does nothing to protect her. We see that when it takes Gloria Guillen's daughter from her and she has to figure out how to demand for answers for her daughter for months, not knowing where she is, not knowing if she's suffering, not knowing if she's alive or dead, for months, pleading with cameras, pleading to celebrities, politicians, anyone who will listen, all the while having to worry about how to stay in this country to continue that fight because she's undocumented. It wasn't until after her baby girl's body was found, it wasn't until after it had the attention of this whole country, it's not until after celebrities were tweeting and congresswomen would actually take her phone calls that she was able to get a temporary stay on humanitarian grounds to know she could keep fighting for her daughter, and at least for a little while. Her stay is only lasts for a year. To keep fighting for her daughter here when this country wouldn't fight for her. We see it again and again with folks like Cal Seli, who has been in this country since he was 2 years old as a legal refugee from Laos. He was set to be released this August after 22 years in prison 2 different years, while in prison, he fought the wildfires here on the coast. He risked his life to save other lives. He risked his life to save property. He fought those fires when he didn't have to. He volunteered for that. 22 years he spent in prison. The day he was set to be released, his sister came to pick him up. His sister came to take him home. They came out and said, "Wait in your car, he'll be out shortly." Time passed. Time passed. Finally, someone came out and told her he's already been picked up. He had a hold. He's been transferred to ICE custody. This country will take and take and take. It will take your service as an EMT and murder you in your sleep and give you no justice. We're here for them, but that doesn't mean we forget about Breonna Taylor and everybody else. This country was founded on people coming and taking what they wanted. Taking gold, taking oil, taking their pound of flesh, and not caring about the rest. Throwing it aside. So this isn't new. This isn't new, but we're not alone here fighting, and us fighting isn't new. We've been here a long time. This fight, this resistance has been happening for hundreds of years. Since they got here, people have been here fighting. People who were brought here from across the world, taken from their communities, still here fighting. People who were here all along, still fighting. I don't know if we get to know their individual, but for at least for BIPOC folk, hundreds of years. And they are lifting us up, and they are lending us their strength. And think of their bravery in this fight when you need strength. Remember that we do this for us, and we do this for the future, but we also do this for our ancestors. We do this for everyone who's been fighting this fight for hundreds of years. What they do to us. They want to take our labor, they want to take their pound of flesh and forget the rest. As we do this work, remember to take care of the rest of you. As the physical, emotional, mental labor, remember when you need to rest, to rest. Remember when you need to eat, to eat. Remember to be kind to yourself. Think of if your ancestors who fought this fight were here, right next to you, what would you do for them? Would you give them a chair if they needed a chair? Would you give them food? How would you care for them? Care for yourself like you would care for them? Care for yourself? To be that role model for those that are going to fight after us. What example do you want them to have? But keep fighting and know that you are not alone, because our ancestors are here with us, hundreds of years worth of people fighting this fight with us. You are not alone, and let them know here that they are not alone. You are not alone.
to hear from her. We are going to have more people speak. We have the lovely young Shekinah who has prepared a poem. The youth right now and the truth right now. 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 Give it up, make some noise.
So before I start, I want to say my name is Shekinah Alvarado. Mi mamá was born in Jalisco, Mexico, and my father was born in Acapulco, Mexico. I have been personally confused about where I come from, who I am. But all that I know right now is that all those people in there, they are my mother. They are my father. They are my cousins, my aunts, my brothers, my sisters, mis tíos, mis tías, mis hermanos, mis hermanas. They are the ones that I'm fighting for. They could be me. I could have been them. And these people, they work for you. They work with you. And they work around you. There are some people saying, these people are taking our jobs, they are raping our children, but they are welcome here legally. It takes up to 3 years to get your citizenship in the US. But you know, why don't they just wait? They can handle the drug war and violence. The answer is easy. Just stop having wars that the US brought to your country. Stop wanting your children to have better lives. The US fed these people inaccurate and unachievable stories about justice, freedom, and equality, and the American dream. Because if you were a melanin baby, the sad truth was that you are chained to an 100-pound steel weight. Socially, you are shunned and brought down by society. But we keep running, even with our weight is being latched onto by laws that were made before our grandparents could even speak. And it seems convenient for you to say that you found this land. This is not the land of the white. The Americans were never European or Spanish. They weren't even America. They were indigenous before anything. And although we can't change the past, we move forward, picking up the beach of glass shards that were left behind for us. So I made a little poem that I called "Massacre Isn't Acceptable Only When He Does It." America forced its way here. America brutalized and kidnapped people he saw as savages. America raped, slaughtered, and divided forests, deserts, valleys, rivers, and people. He forced people out of their own homes. He taught people that held onto their home culture to become men before they even knew the meaning. Because all men were created equal, right? He boasted about his accomplishments as if slaughter and genocide were a game of chess. He is the damn horse that was let loose in the hospital that managed to ruin everything and yet think that he did something. He is an inspirational icon to Hitler. Chinga la pinche migra, porque hasta que veamos el cambio, seguiremos volviendo aquí día tras día. Because until we see actual change, we will keep coming back here day after day. And we have barely touched the tip of the iceberg. Chinga la pinche migra.
Fuck ice! Fuck ice! Beautiful. We are going to hear from just an absolute treasure next. The beautiful Lisbeth is a Caribbean immigrant herself. We are truly truly privileged to hear from these individuals today, and I hope that everyone has that in their hearts and in their minds as we receive these words. So give it up for Liz!
So I want to touch base on a few things. I'd say, just to get it out of the way, since so as we all know, I mean, currently they are in inhumane situations, like in conditions where people are shoved into really tiny places. You know, currently this ICE detention center is supposed to hold like up to like 1,600 people or so, but as we all know, there's way more people in there than there should be. And that is a problem, especially with what's happening right now. It's really, really bad. Back in, I say, early June, July, it came out that 5,000 cases were positive. And they, not only that, they, till this day, they unreleased data that is not accurate. They are not following the actual protocols, and there isn't no protocol. You know, how are you supposed to isolate people who may show symptoms when there is no space? You know? It makes no sense. And as we all know, because of how the system has been brought up, minorities are more likely to suffer from high-risk conditions such as diabetes and asthma and heart attacks and respiratory illness, and they don't give a fuck about that. They don't care about that. You know what they're saying? Oh, the people who are really high risk, we're letting them out case by case. That's not true. That's not true at all. So if you have COVID in there, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can literally do. People who are suffering and come into this detention centers already suffering don't see a nurse, don't see a doctor. They don't have access to that at all whatsoever. And you know what they're doing? Haitian immigrants, which I always stand for because we're brothers and sisters from the same island, you know, they are they're ones that go missing the most. People go unnoticed about that. You know, right now in South Florida, they're getting deported. During this pandemic, the U.S. is currently doing this on purpose, sending people back to Haiti who may have COVID.
They have very few beds.
Very few beds, exactly. They don't care whatsoever. There's been cases, there's been news about how the U.S. knowingly have let Haitians drown in the middle of the fucking ocean because they didn't want them to go and come into land. Do you know how inhumane that is? They don't care. They profit off of this. They profit of holding people like this in detention centers. They profit of minorities till this day. Everybody knows they're privately owned by the GEO group too. And last year in 2019, they made a revenue of 2.1 something billion dollars. Billion dollars? What? Oh my fucking god.
It is correct. This is a privately managed
It's
prison.
fucking insane.
And it's a publicly traded company. That
Obviously
is true.
how deep capitalism runs, but the fact that they go as far as keeping people in inhumane situations and separating them from their families and the trauma and the health part of it, it's just like, it's insane to me. I'm sorry, I'm like, this is too much. I'm
We got you back.
And from personal experience too, like having family friends and like people that I know who stay home even when they have like severe COVID symptoms. to the point where they should go to a hospital. Access, you can get deported. That's not right. And you know, this is coming from somebody who technically, I mean, I wouldn't consider myself privileged, but I would say I am somewhat of a privileged immigrant because I'm still standing here. You know, my mom worked, like, since we come here, like, an insane amount of fucking hours just to give me, like, basic necessities, you know? And I'm able to go outside of the country, know that I can come back, even with the fear of facing TSA, even though that shouldn't be a fucking thing. I'm still privileged because I'm still here and I'm still able to say that I'm standing with them and that I can go to the doctor and that I'm able to say that my mom was able to put me in a more privileged high school and wanted me to go to college so that I could have a better future in a society that doesn't give a fuck about me. You know? And yeah, and as you all know, on top of everything that's happening, they are doing hysterectomies against women's will. That is insane. That is inhumane. That is critical what they're doing too. Women will wake up asking questions on why they're in pain, what happened. And no questions, no questions answered whatsoever. Or they'll be told a lie. When the reality is that they went under an actual dangerous surgery when you're unaware and you're going back into a place where you won't have access to painkillers or a nurse that will check on you or actually recover, you know? And they're doing this as a part of everything that's been going on already. This country, for years on century, has been doing a genocide. People can't see it here yet, but I've seen it. Okay, it happened where I'm from. We have no indigenous people whatsoever. Because Christopher Columbus committed a genocide and raped everybody there. So Dominicans, till this day, we have it on our blood and we have our ancestors with us, but we don't have the history. And the indigenous population here only makes 1%. It's a genocide. What they're committing against indigenous, against minorities, is a genocide indeed. Because once you're not useful for them, they'll get rid of you. That's all. Thank you.
ICE, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. ICE, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. ICE, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide.
All right, so there's a lot to unpack there.
Yes, I love that. All right.
I don't know if there's going to be another speaker or not. 1 second.
Okay. Yes. Good up for Christina D. The light and heart and sun and soul.
Yeah, there's going to be another speaker. So real quick, one thing I will just say just before she starts, Christopher Columbus's human rights record was so bad that he was arrested by the Spanish crown and sent back to Spain in chains because his treatment of both the natives and his own troops were so bad. History, learn it.
Or emotionally to be able to organize or lead anything, which is why I haven't. But obviously, this is something very near and dear to me. And I just want to say, I'm not going to take up too much time. I just want to bring up a couple points. When people say that, we should come to this country legally, I don't know if people know this, but to seek asylum in America, you have to show up at the fucking border. And then they want to start locking us up for doing what we have been the whole time, which is seeking asylum and show up at the border, and then we're thrown in cages, and then re-traumatized. These children go through trauma by the time they hit this border. That is why they're fleeing their homes, okay? There's a documentary, watch it, it's called Which Way Home, okay? And it follows these 13-year-old boys alone across the border. And they're doing this because they think when they come to America, they're gonna get adopted by some wealthy family, and they're gonna raise them, and they're gonna let them go to school, they're gonna get an education, they're gonna play in the snow and make snowmen, and then they'll get old enough to be able to work and support their family. And we all know that is not what happens when you get here. So these boys travel by themselves on a freight train for over a month. There's children that are 9 years old, 5 years old, all by themselves, because they're trying to get, their families are over here and they're trying to send their children. So they get coyotes, which a lot of the times, you know, you don't know these people. And then you're putting your children in your hand because you're so desperate to get them a better life, right? So these boys, these 13-year-old boys, think, in Mexico also, you have to keep in mind, there's no health care. Women don't have birth control. So women have a lot of children, and they can't support these children. And that's why you ask a lot of the kids, especially the boys, why they come here, and they'll tell you, I want to help my mom, And so these boys go on this mission, you know, riding freight trains, and they ride on top of it. And, you know, a lot of people die on these freight trains. A lot of them fall off. The boys, that follows a pair of two 13-year-old boys, other people, but they're the main, you know, story. And they were telling the cameraman how somebody literally got their head chopped off. They were sitting at the top of the train, and you know, whatever came through, and they didn't duck fast enough, and they died. And then he said that he went through something really traumatizing. He said that he saw a mother and daughter getting raped by 15 men next to each other. And that obviously, if you can imagine a 13-year-old boy having to see that, imagine, like I said, the trauma when you get here. You're already traumatized. And this is just one story, one instance. This is just one, you know? And one of the little boys, mind you, they have to go through the desert. And these children think they can get through the desert alone. And there was this, one of the boys got here, the other one went back, they split up, I don't know. One of them ended up in a facility in Texas. And he fled because, and it's a lot, the men in Mexico and South America are a lot different than the men here, obviously. Very controlling. Women have no rights, absolutely, in our country at all. Like, you can legally murder your wife or your girlfriend, and it's called crime of passion, and it's okay. So the little boy fled because his mom's husband was basically treated him like shit, you know. So he went in this facility, he got sent back home, and he was so desperate to get away from his home situation that he came back again and ended up in a facility in I don't know, somewhere. But he thought being in the foster care system here was still better than his country. He thought it was worth it to try to come again, and he did. Because the situations down there are so dire. Like, I went down there when I was 12, I went to Mexico City, and the children there don't go to school. They have to pay to go to school. And they are so jealous and envious. They're like, man, you guys go to school? You guys get to learn? Like, oh my gosh, you're so lucky. And it's just things we take for granted here too, you know? And even though sorry, I'm going off subject. Anyway, even being 12 years old, even though being very young, I understood that even though they were poor, had nothing, they were happy and they were selfless and they just were happy. And I was like, how are these people so happy and they have nothing? Absolutely nothing. Because we have heart. Heart. We're good people, and we come here, you know, to build this country. And people always, it really bothers me when I hear people, like she was saying, you know, they take our jobs. Oh, they take our jobs. They take our jobs. And the truth is, when all this started happening with immigration and Trump and everything, a lot of the immigrant farmers got scared and left.
Yep.
They were like, fuck this. I'd rather
True.
be my país and be poor than be the threat of being put in a cage. So they left, and acres and acres and acres and acres of food just went to waste. It rotted.
Yeah.
Because
True.
no Americans wanted to do the jobs that we do in this country, because they're back-breaking laborious jobs from sunup to sundown. And we're treated like second-class citizens. My sister was telling me she works at a school as a liaison, so she works with a lot of immigrant children. She was telling me a story about a mom with their kids who worked under the table at an Indian restaurant or something. And then when COVID hit, he didn't give her last 2 weeks' pay. And she was like begging, like, please, I really need this money, you know. And he was like, oh, well, you know, the pandemic hit, we need money too. Sorry, we can't pay you. And what is she gonna do? Nothing. She can't do anything, and it happens over and over and over and over and over again.
True.
What are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do? And there's nothing, anything can be done because they're illegal aliens. And it's just
workers.
fucked up and it's wrong. And okay, sorry, I got sidetracked. Because of the conditions
True.
that they're in are that bad and that dire, they're spraying chemicals on people to disinfect from COVID. Like she said, the hysterectomies and the private prisons. And there was a state in Georgia, I forgot my notes, fuck, sorry. Okay, there's I believe it's Georgia, somewhere down south. And there has been a boom in private prisons in like 2019. In 2017, 75% of the immigration cases were paroled, meaning that you were released while they were reviewing your case, paroled, you know? In 2017, 75%. Can any of you take a wild guess of how many in 2019 were approved?
For parole?
Yeah.
25%.
That would be my guess.
None. Not one in 2019 got approved for parole. And around the same time, there was a boom of private prisons being built around the time area. So if you can't do the math, basically they're holding people in these facilities and not releasing them because they're getting paid now from these private prisons, whereas, you know, before it was different. And there was a doctor from Venezuela who was in here, and he was like, also a lot of the people in here get released. They're released, and they still are held in there. Many of them will tell you, I got released in January and I'm still here.
True.
I got released in February and I'm still here.
True.
Because they get paid every day. People are in here, and the doctor was like, I feel like a piece of merchandise. Like, how much am I worth? I'm a piece of fucking merchandise. And the reporter was like, they get $75 every night that you're in here. So his worth is $75 a night. His freedom is $75 a night. So yeah, fuck ICE. Yeah, this shit needs to end. And then what they do to the children? Jesus Christ! There was a 13-year-old girl who committed suicide because she couldn't take being away from her father. The little girl got approved asylum. Her sister got approved. His sister, got approved asylum. So the little girl and her aunt got approved asylum, and we're staying in New York. The little girl was living in Honduras, and she was being raised by her grandparents, and her grandpa got shot in front of her because he didn't want to give up his SUV to the gangs, because they rule everything down there and they extort everybody. And if you don't pay them or you don't give them your shit, you're basically, they kill you. They're your shit. So the little girl's grandparents got murdered, so her dad came to pick her up and take her back to America. He got held in the detention center, and she and her aunt got granted asylum, but she couldn't take being away from her dad. This 13-year-old girl, who again went through all this trauma in her country by watching her grandpa get murdered in front of her, now is in a country where she doesn't know anybody, she doesn't know the language, she doesn't know the smells, she doesn't know the sounds, she doesn't know anything. And the only thing she wants, the only thing that can comfort her is her father. And she can't have that because ICE wants to hold him in detention center and grant her asylum. So basically, she couldn't take being away from her dad, and so she committed suicide. She hung herself. And these are just a couple of stories of how ICE and what's happening in this country affects so many people in so many ways. And yeah, it just breaks my heart, and I just want to do something to make a difference or to make it stop, because it's inhumane. It's not okay. Thank you guys all for coming out here. Thank you, Blueberry, for putting this on. Thank you, everybody. Seriously, thank you. It means so much that y'all come out here and try to fight for my people in here. I love you guys all. Thank you so much for continuing to do this. And I think we'll plan more events and stuff. I just have been going through lots of sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
We love you so much. Please rest. Please take care of yourself. Please do so. We love you a little more so you can be healthy and happy. I would like to get a real loud chant going. The one that Maria had said, that is common, that the La Resistencia group does a lot, which is no están solos, you are not alone. Can we say that back? No están solos, you are not alone. Can we get VIP to come holler on their sound system as well, and we can be so loud.
There's people you're not seeing in the frame. So people are spread out more towards the back with umbrellas and all. I'm just trying to balance you being able to hear and being able to see. If I were to walk back to kind of show everybody, I think I'm zoomed all the way out. Well, you know what? I can go higher. That might show you a little bit more of the size of the crowd. The other thing is, you can probably see just to the right of the frame, there's another tent in canopy, and there's people under that.
You are not alone.
Thanks for letting me this here, sister. Shout out to the Salish Empty Walnut. I'm so glad about Sunday rallies is that there tends to be a time when the mic sort of opens up. So if anybody is feeling passionate and like you would like to speak on anything at all, yes! Girl, take it up for sure. Come on, girl.
So malcontents, let me tell you a little bit about the GEO group, which runs this prison.
I'm pointing it towards the detention center because this is who needs to hear it the most. My name is Trey. Everybody who doesn't know me, I'm with Black Action Coalition.
Excuse me. Thank you.
All the things that our brothers and sisters that are in the detention centers honestly go through. But what Christina said touched my heart as far as the kids being separated from their families. As a black girl from Seattle, I was in foster care for about 5 to 6 years. It was one of the hardest situations I've ever had to go through. I constantly cried every single night, being placed from group home to one foster home to the next. I was hospitalized because I have Crohn's disease and being away from my family. I can only know a slight sliver of what those children go through. And the fact that the government is still allowing these children, their mothers and fathers, these babies, these pregnant women to be in cages is deplorable. It causes so much harm for children to be away from their families. Our foster care system in Washington is fucked. A lot of those kids that are in the foster care system are BIPOC kids. They are people of color. They come from poor families, and they are literally go from foster home to foster home. Sometimes you don't know where you're going to be placed. Sometimes I've had my brothers and sisters talk about stories of where certain foster parents didn't feed them. They were beaten. Some of these kids are sexually assaulted. There's so much trauma that they go through, but the biggest trauma is being away from their families. That is the biggest trauma that these kids go through. And I want to just leave off on a note because I don't want to take up too much time. But the thing is no human is illegal in this country because we are all immigrants. We are all immigrants. I'm an immigrant. I'm a descendant of West Africa. I'm a descendant of slavery. My people are immigrants. Even though I've been here for some years, this is still indigenous land. We are all immigrants, all of us. And the fact that some of these people, some of these racist people, some of these bigots who love to tell people to go back to their country, remember where those people are talking, where they come from. Either they're Irish, or they're from England, or they're Italian, talking about go back to their country. We should not even be here, and that's all period. I pray for these children every single night because I know what it's like to feel like you want to kill yourself because you cannot see your mother. I know what it's like to literally sit in group homes not knowing if my siblings are okay, and the fact that these children can be separated from their siblings. This is truly an atrocity and it's very deplorable. And the government should honestly be ashamed of themselves, but I don't even hold my fucking breath with them because colonizers colonized this land. And that was hard to do. So everybody that's in there, I don't know if they can hear my voice. I hope they can hear my voice. This is a black woman talking to you, and I seriously pray, and I really want y'all to get out and be free. And everybody should be able to make a living here. Everybody should be able to make a decent living. And like Christina said, how can you get help? How can you seek asylum if you do not come to this country? Because they love to say this is the land of the free. We are not all free. This is an example of we are not free. And the last thing I want to leave on for all those Trumpers, all those bitches talking about Make America Great. How the fuck is this making America great? So I just want to say thank you, Christina. Thank you, Blueberry. Thank you, every single body coming out here. Y'all could be anywhere on a Sunday and it's raining. But you guys are here fighting for what is right. You are fighting for human rights. Basic human rights. And I can never, ever be something that's excused. Every single human being has the right to be treated fairly, to be treated with respect, to be able to have decent health care, to be able to have food, to be able to have shelter. Every single human being. Period. So that's all I gotta say. Thank y'all so much for having me talk. Anybody else that wants to come up to the mic on that?
I just forgot to say something really quick. Other countries know how. Okay, sorry. Yeah, other countries know how traumatizing it is to separate children from their parents. And in other countries, they don't do this. It's only the United States of America that separates children from their parents dealing with asylum or anything. No other country does that because they know the trauma. And America is the only country that separates their kids at this kind of rate. And that's why there supposedly is 3,000 kids missing because, like she said, once you get in the system, you're getting passed from person to person, home to home, facility to facility, and that's why they claim that these children are lost, because the paperwork is awesome. Why are you doing what you're doing in the first place? If you weren't doing that, you wouldn't.
Thank you, Christina. Does anybody else want to touch the mic? Yes. So hold it like this so they can hear it.
All right.
Yep.
I mean, these kind of protests.
That's Tia from Black Girl Red Media that's talking.
You know, I mean, we've been to many protests, but like the youth jails, the ICE detention centers with the kids in it, those sting very, very deep. You know, and it makes me think about how unsafe our children are in this country. You know, they mentioned the foster care system. The foster care system is corrupt. Okay? Corrupt. I'm from New York, like Connecticut area, and just to hear Washingtonians talk about how messed up it is here, you know, New York and Connecticut is messed up. They could easily put the children in like another family member's home or something like that, but instead they keep them in a system. Okay? The credentials to adopt a child is not even. I mean, there's no standard. They putting these kids in people that's crazy, pedophiles, beating them, you know, taking out. I can't even like explain it. Like they're not qualified to be parents, and they are parenting these people. Especially when they put like black children with white families. Like, do you have cultural sensitivity? Do you know how detrimental and scary that is? When a white parent has like white supremacist tendencies that they're not aware of, and they're raising a black child, and then they go ahead and they grow up to be what? Conflicted, confused, have kind of complexes and stuff. Okay? And I noticed that America always goes after the children. You know, always. So what does that tell you? It's intentional. It's intentional because they want the next generation to be fucked up. They want the next generation to have colonizing tendencies. You know? So we have to watch out for our children. Okay? There's a lot of children going missing in this country. Okay? If you do further research and people, oh, don't talk about it, this stuff, I don't give a fuck at this point. You know what I mean? My face is out there. Okay? They're trafficking children underground. Okay? Hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions. These kids ain't just disappearing in thin air. The government has a whole motherfucking system at play, okay? They're trafficking these kids to rich-ass white men,
Okay? They're trafficking these kids too. Weird ass sex cults. And I'm sorry because there's children here in the crowd, you know what I mean? So this is a little explicit. Okay? These sex cults is a thing. It's real. And I know a victim of it. I have a friend that was a victim of someone that was involved with a sex cult. Involving children. They are after these kids. Okay? And when you hear them going missing in these facilities, the government is all a part of that. They know exactly what they're doing. Okay, so I'm calling the motherfucking government out. Fuck you. And we know what fuck you do. And once we get the details, we gonna find them too. System. Rape, beating, all of that stuff. Why? And then they don't talk about, oh, we handled the case, it's closed, we handled it in our that case is it was already dealt with. Okay, so tell me what happened then. Why are you not letting us know what happened to that parent, the foster parent? So they're covering up a whole bunch of shit. So what I encourage y'all to do is do research. Go on YouTube, Google why kids are going missing. These cults, okay? The government. You think Jeffrey Epstein, that was like, oh, that a little thing that, no. These are government officials that were his boys, okay? Bill Clinton. There's so many children here, I gotta watch my language. But Bill Clinton, the Clinton administration, kings and queens and all of them stuff, all that stuff, very good friends with him. They got like young children in these islands and stuff. They're all a part of it, all of them. All of them. Majority of them.
They know somebody who is.
Yes.
It's just like,
or they know somebody who is.
Police, they know somebody
like, what is that about?
Right, they gotta know. They gotta know somebody.
And he ended up hanging himself, apparently.
They killed him.
They killed him because he knows too much.
He knows way too much.
Yeah.
He knows way too much.
That's why every security
Yeah.
guard on that ship.
So watch that documentary on Jeffrey Epstein. Google what's happening with these cults, underground jails, underground cults, all of that stuff. They're literally building tunnels under the ground and storing children in there. Look that shit up. And you know, hold this camera so that they can see it.
Yes.
Yeah, look it up. Underground jails, underground sex cults, and all that stuff involving children. So Google and do your research and for us to get this shit out and start holding these people accountable. I know kids in this world like this. And I already made up my mind. I'm not having kids anyway, but I mean that's a strong intention, but damn, like you know what I mean, with reason.
Do we have any Clorox wipes or something here? I don't have sandy wipes. I do got like cleaning wipes.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right. First of all, I want to say give it up for all the Black and Latinx women that are leading this movement. Their whole lives and then have to lead this shit too and get re-traumatized. And as a white person, I just want to say that, you know, I see what you're doing and you're inspiring me, and I didn't have to go through this, you know what I mean? But I just want to speak because I work at a high school. I'm from Seattle, but I work in Detroit at a high school. Right now I'm remote, but I'm an attendance aide at a high school that's primarily immigrant children, primarily Latinx children. And you know what? Like, this shit is the fucking worst version of what's going on. Well, it is and it isn't. It's like kids are locked up in here, but kids every day are struggling. I have kids at my high school that work in factories. I have undocumented children working in factories all night long. And then I'm there saying, hey, you got to go to school. You know, the law is in Michigan, you have to go to school this many hours. You think they give a fuck? You know what I mean? Like, these kids are working in factories. So this is slavery. This is slavery. And don't get it twisted, it's slavery.
just like our jail or prisons are slavery. And to be honest, what I think right now is because there is a movement that's gaining traction to deal with mass incarceration for documented people. The undocumented movement is growing in terms of the GEO group in these facilities. They have to make sure that they still make money. So that's why they're starting to ramp up how they're dealing with immigration, because they want to make sure, they want to ensure they get their profit. They want to ensure they can enslave somebody. You know, and this is centuries, years old. It's not new. But if you look at what the GEO group donated to Trump's campaign, it's no mistake what's happening right now. This isn't a fluke. This is, you watch where the money goes, and that's exactly why this is happening. And then the people that are working in slavery, being chained up, working in canneries, and all the terrible stories that you can read about. If you Google immigration stories, like people in this country, even people who are not locked up in these facilities are struggling every day in slavery. So I just want to say, like, it's all about the money, and it is all about capitalism. That's why we have slavery to begin with. That's why white colonizers captured people from Africa, you know, and that's what's going on today as well. And the other thing I want to say, I brought this up before, but the School of the Americas started in Panama, and that's who trains all the dictators in Latin America. Oh my God. They change the name every year, but it's in Georgia. That's where the school is, and I'm sure they're still training dictators all around the world, and training and counterinsurgency tactics. You know, the tactics they're using on protesters is what they trained in Latin America, El Salvador, all over the world. And now they're going to turn it on us if we really rise up and try to change things. So that's what's happening, and I just thank you to everyone leading these marches, these protests. I want to be out here more, and I'm a social worker, so, you know, but I have privilege and I should do more. You know, white people, I have to get more people out donating, doing this shit. You know, I don't really have that much money because I'm a social worker. They don't pay us. But I'm saying I have people I know with money, and we all have to reach out to the people we know and get them to pay the organizers, get them to pay into these movements, because this is the future, and this is what we all need for a better society. So thank you.
Oh yeah? Okay. Very emotional about this. So, I used to work with refugee miners from Eritrea, from Guatemala, from never specifically with anyone from Mexico, but they all knew. This as a final stage of so many people's lives is the least horrendous thing that happens to them. In Honduras, there are gangs that run around and murder people. That is because of the United States destabilizing Honduras. The coup in Guatemala was backed by the United States, and what we have are indigenous children who work on plantations. They work in coffee fields. One of my boys had machete cuts on his hands from when he used to cut coffee. They don't even speak Spanish when they come here. A lot of these boys speak a Maya language like Isha or Ma, and they learn Spanish coming through Mexico, and then they learn English coming into the United States. And then the expectation is they go through school, like you were just saying, in Detroit. So these children have known Spanish for maybe a year and a half, 2 years, English for a year, and then the expectation is that they complete high school. And if they don't, they're actually not allowed to be in a lot of the programs that are offered to them. They don't get that opportunity. So when boys fall to the wayside, they end up in something like an ICE detention facility, they wind up dead, they wind up in jail.
This is all the truth. Truth, truth, truth.
This is something that is the product of colonialism. The entire globe was captured up by the English and by the United States and divided for financial gain. When we talk about the way women are treated in Mexico, that is part of colonialism. When these boys, most of the time when these boys talk to me, they talk about their love for their mother, how much they love their mother, how much they want to take care of their mother. A lot of these boys do come from abusive homes, come from broken homes. But that's not part of us. Killing women, disrespecting women is not part of us, it's not part of our culture, it's not part of who we are. killing people is not part of us, it's not part of our culture, it's not part of who we are.
Yes.
I always loved having conversations with one of the Guatemaltecas. He was asking me about Latinidad, and I told him, I don't identify with Latino. And he asked me why, and I said, Latino is a Spanish thing. It is something that is not from, like we talk to each other, it's like, you recognize me as a Latino, right? And you recognize yourself as a Latino. You are not Spanish at all, and he was not. He was not Spanish at all. What is the common link between us? The common link between us is not that we speak the same language, it's not that we're both Spanish, it's that we are both indigenous, that we are both from here. Our shared history is the shared history of our indigenous roots, not of our colonizer roots. And we need to recognize that and pass it from ourselves, not just inward, but outward. This is a vestige of colonialism. Colonialism, people think about it as something in the past. It is not something in the past. That land was never given back. Those reparations have never been made, and those lives can never be reclaimed, but we can reclaim those lives for ourselves. It's very daunting to look at, and it's very terrifying, because I have seen the impact it's had on individual lives on such a deep level. One of my boys would always close the blinds. He was like, joked about ICE snipers is what he would say. And he kind of joked about it, but then one night he sat down with me and told me about when he was in Guatemala, he was kidnapped by this gang. They wanted, I don't remember what they thought he might have money or something. Sometimes you just extort families. There's a lot of like petty kidnapping. To call it kidnapping petty, but petty kidnappings. And they took him into the woods and they're like, stay here, we're gonna be gone. And then he ran away. But that filled him with a paranoia, and we talked about that, because it's like, that paranoia, you carry that with you the rest of your life. That affects every relationship you make with people. It's so hard to trust people. It's so hard to know who's lying to you, who's being honest with you, when your own people kidnap you and extort you. And then when you come through, I can't, it's too much. But one more thing I want to say, especially on the subject of like freedom for indigenous people, justice for indigenous people. You were talking about these sex cults, people getting put in these like underground things. I moved here from Alaska, and the rate that indigenous women disappear or raped or killed is ridiculous. Here in Washington, if you want to look for stuff like that, you don't have to look far in the state of Washington. There's a reason it's the serial killer capital of the world. They let all these motherfucking crackers get away with anything. They will let you do anything to indigenous women if you are a white man. That is something we need to rectify. That is something we need to start talking about and addressing.
It is bad everywhere. It is
I'm not going to say anything that's going to get
egregious
myself in
level
too much
in
trouble.
Alaska if you do some research.
By any means necessary, all of this needs to come down. All of this needs to come down. I am not going to die of old age with an ICE facility standing on my legs.
Because every time we come to any type of rally or protest, we want to educate ourselves. What this young man just spoke about, if you guys are on Facebook or anything, there is a group run by Roxanne White, who's an indigenous woman, and it's called Missing and Murder Indigenous Relatives with No Borders. They have events, they have education on there, and it is an epidemic that the indigenous women are going missing. And it goes as well as I'm a black woman. We have so many black women and black girls that have gone missing in Chicago and Atlanta and LA. There are hundreds of thousands. DC, black and indigenous women are literally going missing all the time. So here is an educational resource for you guys to go find out more and see what it is that you can do. And they have events. And there's an event on the 24th for Justice for Renee and Massey. And it's on the 24th at the Seattle Central College. So if you go on Facebook, go to Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives with No Borders. and you will find a plethora of information and ways that you can truly impact and help that community. So is there anyone else that wants to get into the talk? Anybody else?
I want to shout out.
Oh, you gotta hold it like that.
Hold it like this. I want to shout out Mama Kim is here with that's Venmo. So we'll get you a little something.
Yep.
Also, we're gonna. Oh, there it is. The actual rooms are on the other side of this building. This is their offices. So we're gonna pop over to this open area with our noisemaker, and just tear it up. Tear it up, yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to do here real quick, malcontents, because I see that there's some signal and connection issues, I am going to cut the connection. I'm not going to go off the air, but I am going to cut the connection for maybe 60 seconds, and you're going to see probably that be right back on channels. On certain other channels, it's going to get knocked OTA off the air. Just come right back. I'm seeing that there is connection issues. Well, let me ask. I see there's connection issues, but how bad are the connection issues? Let me ask that to the group.
They don't care. They don't care how young they are too. They don't. Like babies. Like this.
And so I can cycle the connection, or if it's not that bad, then I won't do it. FYI, cycling the connection too may not solve the problem. So.
Estamos aquí para ustedes.
Okay. Had to do a little housekeeping there, sorry. So there was a ton of comments and a ton of things said, and there's a whole lot to unpack. So, and there's some things that have been said that, you know, I just want to clarify or back up, or say it needs a little bit more research. It is true that there were hysterectomies done without patient consent at scale. We're not talking like one or two people. However, there is no information to say that that happened at this particular TACOMA facility, but it has happened at a different ICE facility. I think that bears clarification. It doesn't make it any less abhorrent. It doesn't make it any less fascist. I mean, this is really concentration camp grade stuff when you're doing forced sterilization on people at scale. But I always say the truth and accuracy matters. Second thing is about missing children. That is correct. I've seen numbers as high as 13,000, 12,000, and I heard 3,000. We will do some research on that to try to confirm or verify that number. So, gosh darn it. I was afraid this was going to happen in the rain, and it actually did happen. I had the whole page up so I could tell you a little bit about Geo Group. And the rain flipped my screen. So, all right, here we go. The Geo Group Incorporated is headquartered in Boca Raton, Florida. It is a publicly traded real estate investment trust that invests in private prisons and mental health facilities in North America, Australia, South Africa, and the United Kingdom. They are traded on the New York Stock Exchange under the stock symbol of GEO, capital G, E as in Echo, O as in Oscar. They're traded for $11.26 a share. Their CAO is George Zoli, and he is also the founder of the company. The company was founded in 1984, and in 2019 they had revenue of just under $2.5 billion. George Zoli has been the CEO since the founding of the company. He is 70 years old, and he is deeply connected to one Donald J. Trump. His total compensation, George Zoli's total compensation, was just a little bit over $6 million. There are going to be many, many people inside the walls of this facility that are working for George Zoli who aren't prisoners, but in the system there are contractors that are, essentially making what the area minimum wage is. Ironically, George Zoli was born in Greece, so he is a first-generation immigrant profiting off of the imprisonment of undocumented workers and immigrants. You can take all the time you want to unpack that little piece of fact. Looking up the financials of the Geo Group. In their latest filing, which is from June of 2020, they booked $36.7 million in net income on $587 million of revenue, for a net profit margin of 6.5%, operating income of $63 million, that's for the quarter, with $75.7 million cash on hand, which is an increase of 251% from a year ago, meaning cash on hand. Revenue, net income, diluted earnings per share, net profit margin, and operating income, as well as cost of revenue, all declined year over year. On their latest earning call, they beat earnings per share by 63%, and they beat revenue target by almost 1%. So there's your information about Geo Group, private prison, and owner of private investor in private prisons and mental institutions around the world. Basically a company that is incentivized to profit off of human misery. The next thing I wanted to talk about is there was discussion about tactics in Latin America and how the tactics in Latin America on the tactics being used in Latin America. In 2018 in Nicaragua, the Ortega government cracked down violently on the peoples in their country for protesting and demanding basically the end of his dictatorship. The demands of the ending of the Ortega dictatorship was tied to two things. First of all, an environmental disaster that was happening in their country, where one of basically the prized natural resource, prized possession, which is the rainforest in the eastern part of the country, was just basically allowed to burn unchecked. And you know, here's people exhibit A on the argument for climate change. Rainforests aren't supposed to burn in the first place. But the country had experienced significant drought, and this is why this happened. And this created outrage, particularly among the younger people in the country. Then what they announced was a gutting of their Social Security program, the equivalent of their Social Security program, and the gutting of their benefits. This basically outraged anybody who had paid into the Social Security system because, and again, I'm talking about Nicaragua, because a lot of people in Nicaragua work outside of the government and the pay. So the people that were actually paying into the Social Security system were kind of sold on this promise of Social Security. And that was along with just a long list of human rights violations, a long list of sham elections. The people there had had enough. And there was protests and uprising. And Ortega sent in the goon squad. He didn't use his soldiers. He used militias that he basically said were operating independent of the government, of which nobody really believed. And there was a ton of evidence that you could watch actually in live streams from live streamers whose bravery far exceeds anything that I have experienced. Where it was very, very clear that these goon squads were coordinating with the local police, and in some cases even being armed by them. And of course, eventually what happened was that uprising was completely crushed. And the behavior and tactics used by the Ortega government were so abhorrent that their Latin American neighbors condemned it, to the point that Latin American neighbors cut off trade, put in sanctions, and censured them as a nation. But in the end, although officially the official government number is the dozens have died, the reality is the people that have disappeared are labeled in the thousands. And there were huge accusations of torture, beatings, false imprisonment, people held for no reason and then released. And some of those very tactics that I saw in 2018 are some of the exact same tactics that I was seeing in the early stages of the Black Lives Matter movement and the response to it by the U.S. government and state governments in late May and into June. Strategy and tactics that we exported to other nations being used on our own people, I say is true because I've seen it. And we're seeing this, for instance, in Michigan, where thankfully in the FBI, some people who purposely kept AG Barr out of the loop were able to stop a disaster there. And of course, AG Barr was like, I didn't know anything about this.
So 2 weeks from now in Seattle, we're planning on doing another put it on your calendars now. We'll hopefully have a flyer out soon. Additionally, we're doing this follow the Instagram account, which is at 2, the number 2, Lucha. If you don't know how to spell that, your Spanish is not great. It's on that wall right there. Lucha is Lucha, but it's the number 2. So in 2 weeks, put it on your calendars. And then shout out to every single person here, everyone who came from Seattle on this rainy day, this rainy Sunday. This is our new reality. My Seattle protesters, get used to it, get some rain jackets. We're going to be out here every day. Every day.
Well, there you go.
That's all I got. I also need to say thank you to everybody so much from the bottom of my heart for coming to the listeners, for coming to this.
So they're starting to wrap up here.
But I want to thank you all for literally standing out here in the rain.
Oh my God, I'm so wet.
No, I'm soaked.
I'm soaked. I'm just completely soaked.
So thank you guys so much. And thank you. I need to say thank you really quick to TK because
I seriously think the gear, the bag holding my gear has gained about 10 pounds.
I'm sorry. It's okay. All right, never mind. Thank you guys for coming out here. Appreciate you. I know. So you said that if I stand with you, that why wouldn't you stand with me? And you've proven that to me because you're standing out here in the rain. So thank you, because when you said that to me, it had a lot of meaning and it held a lot of weight with me because it was after my first march and I really didn't know anybody very well. I didn't know, but you know, she was just like, you know, we can help you out if you want to know. I was like, really? She said, well, you stand with us, why wouldn't we stand with you? And it meant a lot. And thank you. I just want to thank you all for standing with me, with us, and for continuing to do this right. I appreciate each and every single one of you for setting out the rain. Thank you so much. Thank you. We got. 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 We got.
I think that was TK. I have people nodding. I guess the TK is here. All right. So let me go ahead and drop this down as people wrap up. I guess I got to drop it down a little more, eh? All right, there we go. No, I have the hood on because it's raining. Chuds. It's really raining. It's wet. I don't know if you can see like how wet it is. Like seriously, I think my gear has gained a lot of weight. I know we had some connection problems. I think what I'm going to do is for the next stream, we're probably going to rotate devices. So the device I'm using here, I'll use for the stream. And this device I'll use for the management and the viewing. Because I think what's happening is I think I probably just have ate through my data, and it looks like I'm getting throttled when I'm looking at that. So I know we've had some connection issues. Like I'm watching it right now, and now it's better. So anyway, thank you all for watching. You know, I don't pimp my Venmo really hard. I always say support BIPOC first. But if you're like, wow, he looks cold and wet, you know, you don't have to like put crazy money. You can just put like $5 in the tip jar or something. You can Venmo a little money. Buy me a cup of coffee. Nice hot cup of coffee sounds wonderful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to one of my favorite places in Tacoma from here before I head back up north. And Facebook only, I'm going to do just a little bit of a stream to totally pimp out an amazing, amazing, amazing place in Tacoma and give them a big shout out. So Facebook only, local. If you're not like in the Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia area, you know, you can go watch. I know that there's going to be an event that is going on up in Seattle. Go watch those streams, go support that. And I think we're just going to go ahead and do a little quick pan, and we're going to wrap it up. So with that, I'll do my malcontent out thing because you won't see me again, but I am going to do a little quick pan. So thank you for watching. Malcontent out. Yeah, I'm literally wrapping up. If you give me like 10 seconds, I can have a totally conversation with you.